Assalamualaikum, my name is Muhammad Nurfuan bin Muhammad Nasir and I will make an introduction to our group's presentation. With the world's largest economy, hundreds of overseas military bases and leadership positions in various international institutions, the United States is an undeniable global power. Early American leaders focused on developing the young nation's economy, expanding domestic territory and getting Europe's imperial powers to withdraw from the Western Hemisphere. In their worldview, the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans serve not as barriers to international leadership, but rather as invaluable buffers that would allow the country to grow free of foreign interference. However, according to predictions made by experts, the US dominance is expected to weaken and will fall by 2030. The world's political landscape in 2030 will look considerably different to the present one. Nation-states will remain the central players. There will be no single hegemonic force, but instead a handful of countries, the US, Russia, China, Germany, India and Japan chief among them. Exhibiting semi-imperial tendencies, power will be more widely distributed across non-state networks, including regressive ones, and vast conurbations of megacities and their peripheries will exert ever greater influence. The post-war order that held since the middle of the 20th century is coming unstuck. Expect uncertainty and instability ahead. There are 4 threats to the nation-state that can cause the fall of US dominance. First, the redistribution of power among a handful of nation-states is profoundly disrupting the global order. Established 20th century powers such as the US and EU are ceding importance and influence to faster-growing China and India. Second, the deconcentration of power away from nation-states is giving rise to parallel layers of governance. Indeed, nation-states themselves are busily establishing legal and physical enclaves to contract out core functions to private entities. Third, nation-states and para-states will come under pressure from decentralized networks of non-state actors and coalitions, many of them enabled by information communications technologies. Fourth, nation-states are seeing power devolve to cities. The relentless pace of urbanization is partly to blame. The number of large and medium-sized cities has increased tenfold since the 1950s. According to the current state of world politics, the closest challenger to the US to dominate the world is China. Rivalry between the United States and China has become a paradigm of international relations over the past 2 years. It shapes both strategic debates and real political, military and economic dynamics.
The issue of America's global dominance is a complex. One of the key factors behind America's global dominance has been its economic power. The United States has the world's largest economy and its corporations dominate many industries, including technology, finance and entertainment. However, this economic power also has led to the exploitation of workers and the environment as well as economic inequality both within the US and globally. The US is facing increasing economic competition from rising powers such as China and India, which are growing rapidly and challenging US economic dominance. In addition, the European Union has a combined gross domestic product (GDP) that is nearly as large as that of the US, with a large debt and ongoing budget deficit that limit its ability to invest in infrastructure, education and other areas. The US has faced criticism for its trade policy, including its withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership and ongoing trade dispute with China and other countries, which has hindered its ability to maintain economic dominance. The United States has the world's largest military and spend more on defense than any other country. This military power has enabled the US to intervene in conflict around the world and project its influence globally. However, some argue that this military dominance has also led to an over-reliance on military solution and neglect of diplomatic effort to resolve conflict. The US military has increasingly relied on drones for targeted killings and surveillance. While drones have been effective in some cases, they have also raised some concern about the legality and morality of targeted killings, as well as the potential for civil casualty. The US have been engaged in military conflict in the Middle East for decades, which has strained its military resources and led to a decline in its reputation as a responsible global leader.
Next issue is on political. The United States, like any other country, has engaged in military operation and foreign policy decisions that have been criticized by some as contributing to or supporting acts of terrorism. For example, the United States' involvement in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan has been criticized for leading the increased instability and violence in the region. In addition, there have been allegations of the U.S. engaged in state-sponsored terrorism or supporting groups that engage in terrorist activities, which is the U.S. has been accused of supporting paramilitary groups in Nicaragua during the 1918, as well as of supporting rebels in Syria who have been linked to terrorist organizations. However, that the definition of terrorism is highly contested and there is no universally accepted definitions. Furthermore, the actions taken by the U.S. government in this situation are often justified as necessary for national security or as a response to specific threats. It is also worth noting that the U.S. government operates with a legal framework and it is subject to international laws and conventions governing the use of force and human rights.
Hello, my name is Daniel Hakim. So I would like to tell you about the theory that related to this issue. From this issue, we can see that the theory that most related to the issue is realism. Realism set of related theories of international relations that emphasize the role of the state, national interests, and power in world politics. Furthermore, in general, realism can be defined as one of the main theoretical frameworks that seeks to explain state behavior. It is a theory that places states at the center of analysis and is concerned with states' power and state interrelation. So the question is how the realism theory can relate to the issue. Before this, we can prove that US was very dominant, especially in economy, politics, and military. But now we can see that US slowly lose their dominance because of certain things that happen in three different categories, like I just said just now. First, in terms of economy, back in 2020, President Trump and his surrogates are doubling down on that assertion, including by calling attention to what he has deemed the biggest deal ever seen. The agreement reportedly includes a Chinese commitment to purchase an additional $200 billion in American goods above 2017 levels by the end of 2021. Trump's prioritization on the trade deal and deprioritization of all other dimensions of the relationship produced a more permissive environment for China to advance its interests abroad and oppress its own people at home, secure in the knowledge that American responses would be muted by a president who was reluctant to risk losing the deal. Other than that, US was particularly prevalent in the 20th century. It has become less dominant in the 21st century as the country has become more divided politically and has made highly controversial foreign policy decisions such as the Iraq War. Last but not least, the US has been criticized for making statements supporting peace and respecting national sovereignty, but while carrying out military actions such as in Grenada, fomenting a civil war, and Colombia to break off Panama and invading Iran. That's all, thank you.
Hi, my name is Adam Haris. I would like to explain my part 4.0 analysis of the issue. Is whether United States of America can continue dominance in areas such as finance and technology. This is because country would have to choose between two great power, which is the United States of America and China. Nation-states and parastates will come under pressure from decentralized network of non-state actors and coalitions, many of them enabled by information communication technologies. Large multinational companies are already heavily involved in shaping national policies. As we can see, for example, the Panasonic have moved its headquarters, its HQ from the Europe to Asia. Next, on analysis of the issue, the deepening ties between China and other emerging economies and the rise of Asia as the center of world trade are reshaping the global balance of power. As we can see, as Asia returns to the patterns of e-commerce and cultural exchange that thrived and exceeded the European nation, the rise of China and a vast Asia trading system. United States hegemony can be designated as a type of domination based on primarily on dominated peoples and groups rather than purely on a leader's cohesion and exerted force. The term is often loosely used to indicate complete domination, but its precise definition has far more analytical power. For example, United States of America will no longer be global hegemony, as some of their power will be shifted to other challenging country such as China as a global economy dominance.
Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Farah Adila binti Muhammad Shahrizal. I would like to present about the impact of the America's global dominance and the decline of the West. Resistance to US leadership has always existed, but it has grown in direct proportion to the spread of global power. China may prove to be America's most formidable rival, but other emerging nations will be forging their own path rather than automatically aligning with Washington. In the coming years, America's most reliable partners will be its traditional allies, which is Europe and Japan. That is why it is problematic for the US that these allies are losing ground in the ongoing redistribution of global power. As strong as this sense of decline may be, it deserves a more true examination. Measuring changes in a nation's relative power is difficult, but there are some basic indicators, which is the size and influence of its economy in comparison to other powers, the magnitude of military power in comparison to potential adversaries, and the degree of political influence it wields in the international system, all of which comprise what the Chinese call comprehensive national power. Optimists about China's development predict that it will surpass the US as the world's largest economy within the next 2 decades. This could imply that the United States' economic position will be increasingly threatened in the future. However, the size of an economy is not a good indicator of overall power in the international system. If that were the case, early 19th century China, with the world's largest economy at the time, would have been the dominant power rather than the helpless victim of smaller European nations. Even if China reached this peak again and Chinese leaders face significant challenges in sustaining the country's growth indefinitely, the country will still lag far behind both the US and Europe in terms of per capita GDP. Military capability is also important, as an early 19th century China discovered and Chinese leaders are aware today. The United States continues to be unrevealed in this regard. It is by far the most powerful nation the world has ever known, and there is no evidence of a decline in America's relative military capability. Americans spend less than $600 billion on defense each year, more than the rest of the world's great powers combined. The superior expenditures understate America's actual military superiority. American land and air force are equipped with the most advanced weaponry and have the most combat experience. In a head-to-head match, they would easily defeat any opponent. In every region of the world, American naval power remains dominant. If China is likely to be America's future global competitor, then a richer and more powerful India will be an asset, not a liability to the US. Overall, the fact that Brazil, India, Turkey and South Africa are experiencing economic growth, which may or may not last indefinitely, is either irrelevant to or beneficial to America's strategic position. At the moment, only China's economic growth can be said to have future implications for American power, and only insofar as the Chinese translate enough of their growing economic strength into military strength. Okay, that's all from me. Next, Fuad will present about the recommendation and suggestion.
These are some recommendations that can be considered by US to strengthen their dominance. To outcompete their rivals and tackle shared challenges, America will need to maintain and refine its competitive edge by making critical domestic investments. In an interconnected world, there is no bright line between foreign and domestic policy. The future of America's success in the world depends upon their strength and resilience at home, and especially the strength of their middle class, which is critical to their national security as an engine of economic growth and a key source of democratic vibrance and cohesion. The reverse is also true. US success at home requires robust and strategic engagement in the world in line with their interests and values to make life better, safer, and fairer to the American people. That is why they must make far-reaching investment in the sources of their natural strength while building their resilience. Thank you.
In conclusion, although the US is still a dominant power, it is unclear whether it will continue to be the world's leader. The US is seen retreating from international organization it is lead for years, while China and Russia appears to be rising and challenging American dominance.